Ladies and gentlemen, we will begin with the Industry Academia session right now. I would request the session chair to please take the stage and take it forward.
No, this is a very brief introduction here. I want to thank each one of my panelists, and we want to start the thing. But before I formally start, I want us to realize that chairman may be chairman, but in Lok Sabha, Raj Sabha is the speaker who decides who to speak. You may be leader of legislature party or opposition. So our Om Birla is Mr. Prashant Girbane, who is going to be the moderator. So I'll suggest, Prashant, you do the thing. I'll come immediately after that. I'll do the thing. Because you said there.
Thank you so much. In the audience today, we have Dr. Mujumdar sir, Chancellor of Symbiosis International University, the Pro-Chancellor, Vice Chancellors from various universities, and all the distinguished attendees. Thank you so much for coming here. Straight we'll get down to talking about the topic for the discussion today, which is the Industry Academia engagements. You all have gone through the list of speakers, so I'll not take much time, but very, very briefly, we have here one of the best industries, engineering industries that we have in the country and also in the parts of the world now is Thermax. We're blessed to have the chairperson of Thermax, Ms. Meher Padamji, among us here, and that's Meher. One of the best firms from Pune that has gone in many, many countries and done wonders for its clients is KPIT. KPIT started with IT, continues in IT, but it also does some wonderful engineering work now, including the first hydrogen fuel bus that this city saw flying on the street, even for experimenting, and that was from KPIT. Mr. Harold Bremen, Lee, because he allowed us to call that, so I'll continue to call Lee, is Acting Principal Commercial Officer at US Department of Commerce. He may not be able to share all the secrets of what the President and Prime Minister are going to discuss, but I'm sure he'll reflect on what he can in terms of Industry Academia linkages today. Of course, you all know that Prime Minister Modi would be in US over the next 2-3 days, and he would be addressing also the joint session of the Congress there. We also have Ms. Anuradha Gupta, Head of Partner Engagement at Macquarie International University, Australia. When we think of internationalization of university, right, there's no other name than Symbiosis, understandably. And there is a whole lot of good work that Symbiosis is doing among all the universities. One of the universities that they're deeply engaged with is Macquarie University. And as we're discussing with Anuradha, she'll be sharing her decades of experience on Industry Academia linkages and the bridges that she's been able to build. When we think of India, you think of manufacturing, you think of automotive. When you think of automotive, one of the first things you think is Fiat car. So we also have the Senior Vice President of Fiat, Mr. Rakesh Baveja out here, and he'll share some of his interesting experiences. The chairperson, Mr. Pradeep Bhargava. Oh, my apologies, I'll come to it. Dr. Rajesh Pankaj, the director of FICCI, one of the most well-known industry associations nationally. The oldest one is FICCI, and understandably they have a national footprint when it comes to a lot of work that happens on Industry Academia linkages. And to head that division, FICCI has appointed Dr. Rajesh Pankaj, and hence we had to have him here to talk to all of us today. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention this very, very important thing. I have checked with Symbiosis. There are no penalties for claps. At any point you feel like you can clap. Coming back, and it's also not bad for health. Coming to the chairperson, Mr. Pradeep Bhargava, he's not new to this university, neither to academia, nor to the industry, right? And hence the best person to chair the session today. Mr. Bhargava has been MD of one of the Cummins divisions here, as well as the past president of MCCI, president of CII Western region. So he'll be able to share both the perspectives. Now, I'm not going to take much time. We'll straight head to the topic of the discussion and the format. The format is such that we'll spend about next 50-55 minutes in the discussion, and we'll have good 30 minutes for the questions. One small warning to all the panelists here. that we have the chancellor of the university sitting and evaluating. So we'll all be on our best. So coming to the session, of course, the session is about industry academia engagements, and we'll get to hear all the perspectives. To begin with, we'll have 55 minutes for the discussion and 30 minutes for the Q&A. I'll be requesting the chairperson to give his opening remarks, and thereafter I'll be requesting each one of the speakers to give their remarks, and then we'll have a bit of the interaction. If that's okay, I'll request the chairperson to make his remarks. Either way is fine. Thank you.
Thanks. Now that I have the opportunity. Thank you very much once again, Prashant. And so this is, Prashant very politely said that he's this and that. What he meant is not good in either. I'm just going to say that the thing is, I've been a corporate man carrying a corporate visiting card all my life. But in recent years, I've been like Ravi Shastri and Gavaskar, giving opinion, a spent force, but not a lost cause as yet. So I have the opportunity of engaging with industry associations, industry, I sit on the boards. So I have some feel for the industry. And I'm trying to justify my position, my role as a chairman, because I've been very, very deeply fascinated by academics. I didn't have the intellect to join one. But over the years, I've had invasions into academic institutions. People like Dr. Majumdar and Vidya permitted me to come here. And over the years with various universities, I've been in Board of Studies, Academic Council, IQAC, Board of Management, even got into the NAC things. So here's it's been embarrassing for me. Every time I enter an educational institution, they call you Dr. Bhargav. When I tell them, Baba, I'm a postgraduate diploma, not even a postgraduate degree. So I'm fit to be a compounder at most, not a doctor, but I get this honorary doctorate every time I come here. So the reason I'm able to discharge this responsibility because I have a sense and feel of the corporate sector, rather more than that. And I've been associated with academia, so I'll do this. So Prashant, the 5 minutes given to me, I'll make 5 observations, 1 minute each. 2 are my axioms and 3 are my comments. And this is totally in the context of what we are going discussing industry academia. My first so-called observation relates to a hypothesis. And I'll lean on my industry. So both universities have their charter, their goals, their objectives, their task cut out. Let's call it A. Industry has its own charter, task, objectives, what drives them, B. And I'll use set theory to sound more profound. We're looking for this A intersection B. A is the way industry moves, B is the way universities move, both with a charter, but they intersect. And I think the objective of this session is to increase this set theory A intersection B to the maximum extent, and also to see that during this journey of A intersecting with B, we have efficiency, productivity, minimum potholes, minimum hiccups, so that the two benefit completely. Our prime job of an industry is to generate employment growth, returns to the shareholders, and that is not getting diluted. Primary job of educational institution, as Ravi pointed out, is not only to produce graduates and students, but also to help in the research. So there are well-defined tasks, and I think A intersection B is we are trying to maximize, and that is thing. So knowledge generation happens in universities, knowledge application happens in industry, and they're not conflicting, but in fact they need to be connected. So this whole endeavor here, my first axiom is we're trying to build this bridge, and that's the main purpose, which you'll see. Now the second point, my second axiom is you can have a bridge, but we need footfall and traffic on the bridge. You know, we get bridges made and nobody moves, and sometimes there is no bridge and traffic happens. So our second endeavor today here would be how do we make this bridge as efficient, as convenient, as enabling, to ensure that the potholes and speed breakers, not only in the processes, but in the mindsets. And I think that's a bigger challenge. Industry pretends it has a certain role and looks at universities in a different way. Universities look at industry as, oh, these guys are only making profits. So I think that mindset has to be broken. So that's what we need to do. And here I want to again talk in a very sense. We've seen 4-lane roads, no? It's not 3+1, it's 2+2. 6 lane is never 5 and 1 is 3 plus 3. So this traffic has to be both sides. And this is where I want to mention that this flow between industry, this bridge has to have flow both sides. Again, to impress you, I'll use thermodynamics. Second law of thermodynamics, those of you who've done physics remember, it says that entropy flows from source to the sink. Thermodynamics recognizes either you are a source or you are a sink. And I think in this case, there is neither source nor sink. Both are sources, both are sinks. The traffic entropy has to flow from both. And this is the thermodynamics we need to adopt here, that it's a two-way traffic. We need to respect each other, recognize each other's positions, and work together. So this is the second example which I'm putting, that we need to work together on this. So creator of knowledge and applicator of knowledge, there's no caste system here, that I'm a Brahmin, I create knowledge, and you are a Vaishya, you're using knowledge. No, there's no caste system here. We are both contributing to ultimately doing. So I think this belief. Very quickly to the 3 points that I want to make, one on each stakeholder. One is industry, second is academia, and third, I want to bring in the state. Anybody from the government here? But it's being recorded. No, I want to, in a very positive sense. No, I'm very positively. You talk about alliances, you talk about engagement. All of us know to solemnize engagement and marriages, you need a bhajji, you need a priest. And I think state is that priest, which is really required to be able to do and ensure that it creates the right environment for this. But I don't know of any priest who, they solemnize marriages, but I don't think they ensure happy marriage thereafter. They don't give an annual maintenance contract for this, please go away after this. So I think the point I'm making is ultimately left to industry and universities to work together. State and policies will are only the enablers. We need to work together, and that's the thing. So very quickly, my one point that I want to make on industry, and I'm being very candid, having carried a industry card all my life, I can afford to be harsh on ourselves, forgive me. But I think we industry over the years have learned and improved and practiced outsourcing so wonderfully. We have vendors who we nurture, who we help identify, make them good quality, give them all the help they require, including tooling costs, etc., to get them. We work with our financial suppliers and work with the complete packaging that we need to do. We handhold them. We do this with our technology provider. So every single partner of us in industry, we really work with them because we think that their failure will be my failure, their success is my failure. So we treat them as partners. Somehow, and I'm being very candid, when it comes to the most important resource that we buy, human resources, we stand on a platform like this. Array, the children don't know what is required. The teachers are not teaching what is today's current. We have to learn, and we have to teach them all over again. We spend a lot of time in getting graduate and so on. We sit and summarize. The question I'm asking ourselves in industry, and we should be asking, why don't we treat this vendor, for want of a better word, this partner, for want of a better word, with the same level of zeal and enthusiasm that we deal with our component suppliers, with our technology suppliers, with our finance suppliers? So here's something that industry needs to understand, that they owe it, not because of a service, but because it is going to help them. So I think that's where we in industry need to be a lot more There are people like Meher who are working on a university. I know Ravi is working with institutions like ICER and many others. These are not the normal guys. We have by and large on the things I've been telling industry, why don't you go and sit on the BOS of somebody? And these things don't have to happen only in fancy IBM with IIT Delhi or somebody with the Institute of Science. This has to happen across. So we need to take a lead. Now, if I can take the liberty of saying my second last point on the universities, forgive me, but I want to say this purely on a constructive spirit. The days of Dronacharya and Eklavya, days of Dhritarashtra and Sanjay are gone. That era is gone. Today, knowledge, information, everything is accessible everywhere. Today, there's a huge competition in every field, including education. Universities are getting universal in their things. They are getting competitive. So I think universities, it's not enough for you to be good. It's important for you to go and actively solicit that this is my expertise, this is what I want you to do. Not just in saying, here my good graduates take it. And I'm part of the education system, so don't get me wrong. And I think there is an amount of a sense of belief, no, somebody should come to me. No, nobody will come to you. You need to go out and do it, because world has become so competitive, world has become so things that people will have to do. So universities need to take that step forward and say, hey, here's what I'm good at, here's what I'm going to do. Don't go to universities only say, take my graduates. They need to go and say, here's this project I can do. And interestingly, I think one point that I'm having been associated with a whole lot of things, beyond a point, industry doesn't care what research papers you have published. Show them a prototype that will help them solve their problems. Show them an algorithm which will help them solve their problems. So try and do your work related to with which the industry can relate. So that's the next step which I think universities should take to do this bridge. And the last point with respect to the government, I'm taking the liberty, and this is something I've opined, and people like Naushad Forbes and we have talked about multiple times. Somehow the state system has looked at universities as teaching. Of course, a new category of NAC research is coming in, but historically funding, where has the funding gone, at least in India? Is gone to CSIR, ICMR, IARI, Agriculture Research Institute, Medical Research Institute, Industrial Research. All the funds of the state have gone into creating standalone institutions which are focused on this. Nowhere else does this happen. I think it's important that the funds go to universities, and there's a multiplier effect with universities. When you give research projects to universities, a lot of children get exposed to it. They become your future ones. So I think the state needs to also recognize that if this alliance has to go up, they need to help by ensuring that more and more within quotes funding is also given to the academic institution rather than just research establishment. So with this, I just want to say that all of us have a role to play. We in industry have to play a role. Universities have to play a role, and I think my wonderful panelists will make this happen. And finally, the theme is all about one earth, one family, and university doing it. I want to tell the academia, we are very conscious that you produce your output not only for us. What you produce goes to the social sector, that goes to the defense sector, that goes to NGO sector, that goes to the government, that goes to the politician. We are only one of your beneficiaries. So you don't have to change all your things, what you're doing for many other cases. Just re-engineer some of your things for us to be more conducive. And I think we in industry need to take that step forward for this bridge to happen. More important than bridge, the traffic to happen on bridge. With this, Prashant, I will sort of conclude, and I think the values will come from my wonderful colleague. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Many thanks. As I mentioned, we have one of the best panels that I have been part of here on this topic. We have individuals who represent industry, individual who represents industry association. There is someone who represents university. Of course, there are a lot of you who represent university here in the audience. And you also have somebody who represents the diplomatic corps, so to say, who would be able to talk about this topic. 2 or 3 broad areas. One is the current state of industry academia linkages. Second is some case studies, if you can talk about, which would inspire others to kind of pick up those thoughts. And third, if there is any internationalization angle that you would have, not just industry academia collaboration within this country, but if there is any example of across the borders, it's even more inspiring. I'm going to stop at that, and what we'll do is we'll start with Meher, if that's okay, and we'll just kind of move in this direction one after the other. Meher. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Pradeep and Prashant. A very good morning to all of you, and thanks for inviting me here, Vidya. So maybe I'll start with where Pradeep left off. Just a few statistics that I've been given. India is way behind in terms of both industry investing in R&D, in research. So today, it's only about 0.3% of our GDP, which industry actually spends on research, as against global average, which is 1.5%. As a country, both government and industry, we spend about 0.7% on research, as against 2.2% globally. And as Pradeep rightly said, a lot of this government spending actually is in defense and space research, apart from the other laboratories, and very little goes actually into university research. up to now, I think many of our premier institutes were, and I would say still many of them, focus a lot on teaching. But of recent past, many of them have now moved to research, being more research institutes rather than teaching institutes. The only difference here I still see is that that research is more for publication than for anything else. And if there's one thing that we could incentivize, can we incentivize industry and academia, or academia, to come up with industry partnered research? Because that, I think, would then be far more impactful. I think we've moved slowly from being sort of transactional to a little more on the partnership side. And I thought I'd give a few challenges that I see in terms of the way industry sees universities. I think we feel probably that universities need to give us almost a ready-made product. And that's not the case. And I think if industry could change its mindset to know that research institutes are great in terms of converting science to technology. We need to handhold that process, but then move from technology to commercialization within our own product development process within industry. We can't expect universities to do that. And if you talk about maybe TRLs, I think up to 3 is roughly where universities are. Then if universities and the corporates could come together to take it to TRL 8 or 9, and then industry takes it on, again putting it into their product development process. I find that what is really lacking at the moment is mindsets on both sides, but also speed. We ourselves have worked with a few universities, and I'll give you a couple of examples. We've been one of the early sponsors of the Prime Minister's Research Fellowship Program, which was announced in India, where we sponsored a PhD candidate at IIT Madras. We worked with him on a particular topic that we wanted to, on the science part of it. After his PhD finished, he actually joined our company, and we put a team around him, and we took that science-based research that he had done, converted it into technology, and hopefully we will be coming out with a product in the next few months. I would still say this is a one-off. Okay, this doesn't happen on a regular basis. The other one that we've done very recently, in fact, over COVID, which I think is great, we partnered with IIT Delhi and the Department of Science and Technology, and have come out with a design which we've put into a pilot plant at our factory. I think some of you are going there this afternoon, so you will see it. But taking that pilot and then again moving it to the market is something where we need the government to be involved. And we're looking for, it's a first of a kind project for the country. And so therefore we are looking at some kind of viability gap funding from the government to really take it off the ground. And that, as I said, speed is of the essence. It's just not happening. And I think it's been over 1.5 years that we are still waiting for it to happen. And this is where we really need the government as a catalyst to help, especially FOAK, first of a kind projects. Do I have a little more time? 1 minute more? We've just talking a little bit about international partnerships. Yeah, we've worked with Fraunhofer Institute. We've worked with Georgia Tech. We've worked a little bit with Florida University. But I have to say it's more sort of, it's not really a partnership. You know, it's more sort of, we have a slight problem. We've gone to them. We've tried to work with them. But have we taken it to its logical conclusion? I don't think so. And so therefore, I think if a lot, as Pradeep rightly said, it has to be from both ends, business as well as academia. And sometimes I feel that the people who could make a big difference in doing this is alum of those institutes. If there are alumni in our company from a particular institute, I think we found that it helps that much more in terms of making this bridge happen. I'll stop here.
Thank you so much. As I mentioned in the format, if anyone has a quick one-liner, I'll take that and then we'll move to Mr. Pandit, including the chairperson. All right, then I'll move to Mr. Pandit. Okay, sure.
There was a lawyer friend of mine who once told me that I cannot think unless I stand and I cannot speak unless I am paid. So I got, I got the first half. I got the first half of the habit. I prefer to stand when I speak. When I speak. So, we are talking about the industry-academia interaction, and I will bring that. I'll bifurcate that into two buckets, so to say. One is, and these are the two roles I think of the universities. One is teaching. The second is research. Okay. So I want to talk about these two things, how the interactions happen, especially from my standpoint, the industry that I come from. So let me talk about the teaching part first. Okay. So, I represent an industry, the IT industry in the country, which is characterized by extremely high growth, lot of requirement of people, tremendous international exposure, and therefore our raw material is our people. And so there is a phenomenal interaction that happens between our industry and the academia. And in a company like us, we are small by Indian standards. We employ something like 12,000 people globally. And there are companies in our country who employ like 200,000. Okay. But what we do is we very deeply get engaged in training the students and the faculty of colleges in at least their last 2 years of colleges. And because we feel that whereas the academia teaches them the base things, how to make them truly global, how to make them truly cutting edge is a work to do. And our industry gets that done very, very deeply. We get involved in that quite deeply. That's as far as the academia part is concerned. I wanted to spend a little more time on the research part because that is something which is very dear to my heart. And so here I want to tell you a bit of story of our experience. And I want to tell that story because it talks about even a framework of looking at research or innovation in general. And so I'll tell from my experience. I think that will bring out some salient points that I want to make out. Our company is a disruptor in its industry, which is the automotive industry. The automotive industry is changing more now than it had changed in the last 100 years when Henry Ford came up in 1918 with the Model T, and he changed completely the automotive industry. Today, a similar change is happening in the automotive industry, which gives role to disruptors to make a change in the industry. And I believe disruptors have a very important role to play when it comes to any innovation, any research or anything new. And we are one of the disruptors in that area. And typically a disruptor wants to upset a given apple cart, so has to think differently, act differently, and innovate necessarily. Now, when you are looking at any research or innovation, I think there are 3 or 4 parties to it. One is the industry, second is the academia, and the third is the government. And I want to talk about, on the basis of my own experience over the last maybe 10 years or so, what role happens, especially in a country like us, but generally also. So my own experience about industry and research is that generally an established industry does not want to upset the apple cart. So if you were to look at the auto industry globally, who has upset it is not the GM, not the BMW, not the Ford, but it is Tesla, okay? Because Tesla is a clear case of disruptors. So you need a disruptor to make a change in the industry. And there is ample academic evidence to show that innovators, when they become normal workers, normal companies, they lose their innovative edge. And what we find is that unless there are disruptors in an industry, the acceptance of research or innovation is not very high. And the statistic that Meher talked about is actually a reflection of that, especially in India. In India, many industries, and my colleagues in the industry, see, they are living in a more steady state. They are not exposed to the same turbulence that probably a typical US company is engaged in. We typically have a situation where the market is reasonably stable, and the normal tendency of anything, any organism, is to not to make a change. And therefore, the pull from the industry for any research is not necessarily very high. And we need to do something about it. And I think that has something to do with the creation of an industrial environment, to creation of a way where some disruptors will come in with some money on the table to make a change. So that is what is needed at the industry end, in my opinion. At the academia end, it is also something similar. And let me give my experience before I go into that. So, as I said, we come from a disruptive industry. I'm personally very passionate about sustainability. And for the last 5 years, I've been doing a lot of work on creating of new solutions, which are globally amongst the best. So work that Prashant talked about, fuel cells. We are the first company in the country, we made fuel cell in the country. We came up with new batteries, because most of the world is looking at lithium batteries. We said something has to change if batteries are going to be available in India at affordable cost. So we worked on sodium ion batteries, and which were like, we are among the top 2 or 3 companies in the world doing that. So we worked on hydrogen generation, again patented processes. In each of these areas, we have worked with educational and research institutions. And I must say that I have plenty of experience working with many R&D research institutions or academic institutions. We have worked with College of Engineering Pune, we have worked with at least 2 IITs, we have worked with at least 3 CSR laboratories, we have worked with Agarkar Institute, which is a part of another name. So my experience is that when it comes to any academia, you don't partner with an institute, you partner with an individual. Because the individual has the passion to do something. You really need individuals who want to make a change. And the passion for an academic is actually a passion for creating new knowledge. And typically, if you look at the institution job is to stop that person from pursuing his passion. So what I have typically found is that there will be umpteen number of things. You see, like the lab has to be open, but the lab cannot be open on the 4th Saturday because 4th Saturday the college is closed. Okay. If some equipment is not working properly, you cannot get a replacement immediately because the purchase process takes 4 months. Doesn't matter what research you are doing, what pressure you have on coming to the market. So, an institution does something to stop things, whereas a person may do something to change things. Just as I believe in the case of industry, a strong wind of competition can make a change. I think in the case of academia, a change in terms of how does an academia evaluates itself makes a change. So I think that needs to be done. And the third component is, of course, government. And I would only make a point like this. Governments are also, in a sense, established undertakings. So you need to have something different to make a change. I would think that a process whereby some purchase guarantees are given to an innovative solution at affordable market prices is something that can help them get over the volume that they typically need. So I think if these three things are done with these 3 parties, I think the bridges will be open and the traffic will be very high. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Unless there is any quick one-liner comments from any one of you on what Ravi just mentioned.
Yeah, thanks Ravi and Meher, and I think this is the so-called hardcore of including me, the factory guys. I think it's important that we start and universities start looking at industry that they will be the go-to point, not just for recruitment, but go-to point for problem solving. And I think this comes by precisely engaging with this. Skilling, and I'm just interjecting, is a part which is not very high in the protocol in universities. Knowledge generation, research, teaching comes in. Hardcore skilling people to do work with their hands is something which industry also needs, even from engineers and things. So I think one of the phases that can come into universities for them to be more attractive for us is adding focus on application engineering and skilling. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to say that I think what really resonated with me, Ravi, is this person rather than institution that makes a big difference. I think even when you go to a consultant, it's the person that you're going behind rather than the consultancy per se. But I think that's really, really a very important point that you made.
Thank you. Yeah, please.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll just take one line.
Ravi, you have been doing a great job, and you rightly mentioned it's not like to see the industry and the academic institute, the collaboration, but the individual, like you see, the passion that is to be seen. So how do you identify the individuals for the collaboration for such research work? This is
I'll
Really.
certainly take that question in the Q&A round. Thank you
Okay.
so much.
Thank you.
Now I'll move to the next speaker. Thank you.
Hello, thank you very much. My name's Lee Brayman. I'm from the U.S. Consulate up in Mumbai, and you're wondering why someone from the Commerce Department is at an academic discussion. Well, in the past year, we've seen a 20% increase in trade between India and the U.S., and I would like to take responsibility for that, and so I thought I'd come to this event. No, seriously, it's very important to both our countries that industry be innovative, creative, and grow. And that's not going to happen without a highly skilled, educated workforce. So we, the US government, have a very vested interest in promoting the best education globally. Education has been named one of the export priorities for the United States government. We are very, very active in promoting collaborations between academic institutions across international borders. And I do have an answer for the question of what is the role of the state. The role of the state is to create a favorable regulatory environment and then provide a forum for introduction, i.e. leverage the ability to convene, bringing you together with industry, so that you can talk and find your own relationships. It was very well pointed out that I don't have the ability year after year to run your relationship. It's up to you. But I will tell you that my personal observation, originally I was an academic. I was a teacher before I went to get an MBA and then entered the field of industry and business. But I will tell you what I think, and that's not very usual for a diplomat. Usually they tell you what you want to hear. The wall between industry and academia is slowing down progress. That's a provocative statement, I know, but that wall exists. There is no reason for that wall. Industry is made up of your alumni. We've heard stories here of how industry benefits from the relationships to your universities. There was a serious issue in 2018. I was working in Osaka, Japan, and Toyota came to me and said, we cannot hire people in Georgia. You talked me into investing $1 billion to build a factory in Georgia, and now I can't operate it. What we did was we introduced them to the state of Georgia's government, who introduced them to community colleges, who helped them develop a curriculum that trained the type of skills that they needed at that factory. It was a win-win for everyone. Kids got the latest relevant training, hands-on experience, and a job offer, plus a certificate they could take if they wanted to move to another state. A 2-year bachelor associate's degree. Another great example of how industry and academia can work together. My son just finished a bachelor's program at George Mason University as a mechanical engineer. Every year in the summer, the school goes out and talks to local businesses and identifies 3 to 5 projects. Those projects are then assigned to the graduating class for a full-year program, a full-year project, where the kids have to come up with a solution to the local business problem. My son was very excited. He got to work on a new type of turbocharger for a Ducati motorcycle engine. But all the school had to do was assign the task and then provide the structure to make sure that there was an evaluation methodology behind the project. The business made sure the tools were available, gave them the starting point of the project, and provided advice to the kids as they moved ahead. And at the end of the year, these businesses that participate get a solution to a problem that helped them extend their business, to grow into new product ranges and offer new things. I was very pleased about that, and I was very excited when my son told me about going to George Mason, because I knew about that program. My daughter's at Rochester Institute of Technology, which has the latest labs and the latest equipment because that school partners with the local industry. Those kids are graduating from that school in 5-year programs, 4 years of academics, 1 year of mandatory full-time work. but they're learning the latest technologies, the latest methods, and jobs are waiting for them when they leave. Just in general, I want you to be confident, though, that I've spent the past 3 years here in India trying to bring US and Indian schools together to see where they could have potential partnerships. We've had a lot of success with 3+1+1 programs and bringing these schools together so that they can bring new teaching methods, they can bring new curriculum, new texts to Indian students. And the American schools get great access to wonderful research minds. And it's been a win-win for both sides. But why can't we do that with industry as well? If we can do it across an ocean, we should be able to do it across the street. The other thing that I wanted to share with everybody as well is that using your alumni networks to build and start, as was correctly pointed out early in this discussion, to start your relationship building efforts is your #1 way forward. I recommend to every company that wants to come to India, first of all, find out if any of your American partners are already here and then have them buy your service here. You pull yourself into the market. You can do the same thing. Many, many universities have people in the Director General's office or the CEO office. There are so many relationships that you already have that you have not yet leveraged. We will continue to work together to bring businesses to India, to bring universities to India, to introduce them to the universities and the other industries here in India so that those relationships can start. But you can't rely on me to make that relationship go to step 2 or step 3 or step 4. That has to be up to you. If there are resources that I can share with you, I will help you. That is another role of government, is to help you when you encounter an issue. Yeah, I think I've been controversial enough, so I'll pass it on to the next person.
Thank you so much, Lee. Before I ask Anuradha once again, I will not interrupt claps. Thank you, Lee. Before Anuradha takes it, anyone else has any quick comments? I know that there will be opportunity later as well, but I should always ask this. Thank you. Anuradha, over to you.
Thank you. So unlike Ravi sir's friend, my friend has advised me not to get up and talk because at 5 foot, I am practically invisible behind that podium. So allow me to sit and talk to you. I just want to add a 4th stakeholder, sir. You talked about 3 stakeholders in your opening remarks. But from a university's perspective and also from, I think, probably the only humanities graduate sitting on this panel, probably, assumption, we put the students as the 4th stakeholder. I think for a university, that's probably the prime stakeholder. I represent an Australian university. Sorry, that's okay. That had to happen. I was speaking. It's okay. So I am representing an Australian university, and there are a lot of colleagues of mine who are here from Australia. Probably in the other room, there is government representation here as well. It speaks strongly about the India-Australia relationship that's been growing, and it's growing how in the last few years. And I think just last week you probably would have followed the news about mutual recognition of qualifications framework as well. So it's a good time to be sitting here and talking a little bit about the work that we've been doing. Building the bridges is a phrase that's been used since morning, and I want to continue with that. As well. Australia has about 43 universities, and all of them are public funded universities barring one, so with one exception. So government is deeply invested in the way the universities are run, in the way they are regulated, in the way we internationalize our collaborations. Part of it is also about industry, academia, bridges or linkages that we build. I want to give you a couple of very specific case studies from what we do, because I'm a practitioner, I'm an operations person, so that's an easy bit for me to talk about. One of our most successful partnerships that we've built up is with a company called Optus Singtel. There is a cybersecurity hub that we built at Macquarie with Optus. It answers a lot of questions that were being posed earlier about investments, about who brings what. The center was built up with joint funding. There is a $5 million funding which the industry put in, then the university put in as well. The mandate was clear. The industry wanted its professionals to be trained, and the university, we wanted our students to be job ready. Graduate employability was our primary concern when we were getting into this partnership. From the inception of the partnership, it's been a give and take relationship. The university has trained Optus staff in research, in decision, in business related fields like design thinking, decision making, in humanities again, how to have people skills, collaborate with people, and those sorts. What the industry has given back to the university, they have given us funding for our students. For example, just to quantify it, Optus opens up 10 positions for our first year engineering students to actually be employed at Optus from day one, and they fully fund their education at Macquarie. So that's 10 engineering students. They also fund PhDs, postdocs, and Masters of Research students. And a lot of our students come from India. So we've had students come from BITS Pilani, we've had students come from NITs, IITs, and not just that, we've also had students come from industry, who have either come on a company sponsorship or they've taken a break and they want to learn about cybersecurity. And it's quite interdisciplinary because our faculty of arts teaches them about the human perception of security, the criminology aspect. The science and technology teaches them about data science, etc. behind cybersecurity. And then there is obviously the governance aspect of it, which the business school teaches. So it's interdisciplinary. It is international. It is a true exchange of knowledge and skills. And this is a successfully running example since 2014 at our university. I think I'm running out of time, but just 1 minute for an example that we do in India. We also work with the Apollo hospitals. So that's a large chain, we all know about it. What Apollo Hospitals does for us in Hyderabad is it trains our doctors. Our third year MD students from Australia spend a semester here at Apollo learning about medical interventions in India. So that's again a true exchange of knowledge between industry and academia, and it's international. So I was given these three dot points that talk about internationalization, talk about mobility, and talk about industry, academia. Any questions we can chat later.
Thank you, Anuradha. You talked about all the three. Many thanks, and in time. Thank you for that as well. Now I'll request Rakesh. I don't know what Rakesh is going to say about what his friend said, but it's okay. Like one of the two things, maybe he has different. Yeah.
Thank you very much. And to me, the industry and academia creates a symbiotic relationship where the academia and the industry benefit from each other's experience, resources, and perspective. Ultimately, the students, they are the gainers. If you just look at the current state of the industry academia linkages, like the government has also done a lot of job, and there are certain states like maybe take Karnataka, Maharashtra, and Gujarat. So they are having some strong linkages, while others they are having moderate to the weak linkages, because the Karnataka, Maharashtra, and Gujarat, so they are well developed in terms of the industrial as well as the educational, like you see the area. The government has also taken a lot of steps. This is the skill development and entrepreneurship policy that is released in 2015, NEP 2020, Atal Innovation Mission, and the DST, Department of Science and Technology initiative. They have taken a lot of initiatives to promote the industry and academia collaboration. Make in India and startup, that is really known to the people, and also the public-private partnership framework that is also created. One the recently, like you see, the government has also enlarged the scope of the corporate social responsibility. So they have amended the schedule, like you see, where the industry they can fund the CSR spend for the research and the other innovative projects, like you see. So their contribution to the publicly funded university, IITs, the autonomous bodies engaged in conducting the research, so that is also going to give a good result. As of now, like you see, the corpus of the CSR fund in India is around 15,000 crore rupees they spend every year. And just imagine if the 20% of this fund is allocated for such projects, then surely is going to be a big difference. I come from Fiat India, is a joint venture of Tata and Stellantis, and we have a beautiful program called Vingyan. And the Vingyan program, this is collaboration with the Symbiosis Skilled and Professional Universities Pune, and the objective of this program is just to like to see the support the underprivileged girls from rural Maharashtra. Every year we select 30 girls and we support them for 2 years residential program at the sister organization of this university. And I'm very happy to tell you the way we have transformed these girls really is worth praising. The 60 girls, those who have passed out, every girl got the 2 to 3, like you see the employment letter, and that is to the permanent employment letter. Course is beautifully designed by the university and the blessings of Mr. Majumdar, and he was very keen to like you see the promote this program. So now we are going to scale up this program from 30 girls to 100 girls every year, and also this program has been replicated by many other like you see the industry. So this is something is really very interesting, and as the name indicates, the Vingyan, wings to fly high in sky. So this is something is really great job which is being done with the collaboration with the universities. 60 girls means transforming the life of 120 families. Like if you sponsor a girl, so girl represents the 2 houses. So this is how like you see that we are conceptualizing this program. And moreover, this program is not limited to this. This program is further like if the girls they aspire to become diploma holders or the degree holders. So that is also the kind of the facility that is available. Additionally, we have another example of collaboration of industry and academia. We are going to build a school at the place of Khanewadi. This is the birthplace of Mahatma Jyotiba Phule. This is a renowned social reformer, where like you see the school will be for the destitute girls, and with a very leading like you see the school in the country. So they will be taking the academic part of it, like you see responsibility of the school. So this is how like you see that we have seen the advantages of being having a collaboration with the institutes. I just want to leave a small thought with you all. Like if there is a degree course, is the 4-year degree course, we just talk about 4 years they spend in the institute, and during the course curriculum, like they're supposed to go for 2-3 months for the vocational training. If we reduce this 4 years to the 2 years, if he makes the kind of a joint program, education program, the 2-year like you see the maybe the extended hours in the universities, and the 2 years like in the organization where they can have the hands-on experience, then you see the advantages. Like you see the institute can run like you see the more courses, and they can increase the intake number of students, and also like you see the students like whatever they have spent in the 2 years they can earn in the another 2 years, and the industry they will get the like you see the highly skilled manpower to work. And when the student goes out of this program, so he will say yes, I'm a graduate engineer with 2 years of work experience. So this is something is probably one can think of. We are contemplating this kind of sandwich or the program or the joint program with one of the universities, and hopefully like you see that we will certainly succeed in this, and we will see like you see the more students they are doing the engineering. And I mean if someone wants to like you see the do not want to pursue the study, he can like wants to settle with the diploma. So 1.5 year plus 1 year, that can be a diploma, and then further like you see that he can earn, and then you see that take the admission in the university again, and then you see that become the graduate engineer. So these are things like you see a lot of opportunities are there in terms of the research, in terms of how we can like to see the innovate certain like to see the such courses so that the society at large gets benefit out of this. Thank you very much.
Many thanks. Thank you. If you have any comment before I move to Dr. Rajesh.
I'll take, I heard Meher talk about IIT Madras experience. I heard Ravi talk about COEP. I heard Lee talk about what's happening in Rochester, and rather you talked about Macquarie. So wherever industry has decided to engage, they get a plug and play model. We all want everything to be plug and play. So industry, if you want to a plug and play, please go to the playground of the university, and university, please allow us to play on your playground. So this engagement starts early, and then plug and play can happen, because all of us struggle in industry with the right talent. We need to take the step forward, and all the 4 instances, what I talked in general, demonstrate that we take the lead, be receptive, and then we have what we call in industry RTU, ready to use.
Many thanks. And now we'll move to Dr. Rajesh. Dr. Rajesh, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So of course I represent the largest industry association body of India, and one of the conventional mandate that we have as FICCI is to ensure that we are able to facilitate a process of or create an ecosystem where a sustained industry institute engagement take place. So what I'll do, I'll give a very broad kind of an overarching perspective from the understanding, from the experience that we've had as industry association body, and then I'll try and corroborate it with one model that we had, and and kind of give 3 or 4 specific insights which would be tilted more towards institutions in terms of how the heavy lifting has to happen from institution. So all this is fine, level playing field, mutually beneficial association. It'll never work. It'll never be a level playing field, and it'll never be a two-way process. If we seriously want industry academia institute to happen, engagement to happen the way we want it to happen, it has to be more from the institution side, So the institution has to do the heavy lifting. They have to exert a bit, bring a concept to a level, and then from there on, there could be, engagement that could be mutually beneficial. Industry is fine with picking up graduates, training them on board, and using them for their work. So from that perspective, this is one big thing that we have to kind of very candidly and comprehensively understand. Let me also highlight the fact that industry academia engagement is, it's not that India is deprived of it. Let me tell you, it's a global phenomenon. We would have done 30 delegations globally, would have gone to different countries. We had a delegation led by minister and secretary and other senior people from UGC and AICT, and of course FICCI delegation, and I had a lot of insights. It's a global phenomena. It's just that the acuteness or the intensity may be here and there. We had the other day a delegation from Australia that had come to visit FICCI, and they said that we've come to learn the industry academia practices that happens in India. So what I'm trying to simply say is that in fact, as FICCI or maybe government also going forward, and we are kind of contemplating that, can we commence a study around developing a matrix or a framework and just try and understand as to where the engagement level is like, and what is the quotient level, in terms of where the whole ecosystem of industry academia engagement exists as of now. And why I'm saying this, because a week back, in fact 10 days back, we had this industry academia engagement conference in Delhi, and where Atal Innovation Mission Director Dr. Chintan Vaishyan, again she's on sabbatical from MIT, highlighted that if we want India to become a developed economy, we need to have industry academia engagement multiplied by 10x. So there has to be so much of engagement of industry institute engagement, and that's so critical a phenomena. Now let me quickly also take you to a model that FICCI had done, and basis which I'll kind of tell you as to how so basically what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to look at the fundamental structure of industry engagement. So how do you get this practiced? Because 20%, 30% of institutions and industry have exemplary form of industry academia practice happening even in India. Let me at the outset highlight this. There is a segment which is tier 2, tier 3, and by tier 2, tier 3, I don't mean the size and structure of institutions. By tier 2, tier 3, I would mean the kind of leaders that you have. There are so many unsung institutions in India. They're doing exemplary work in industry institute engagement, which came up with a study that FICCI had done. And we've had AICT chairman highlight that at various forums, So there are good tier 2, tier 3 institutions even. So what I'm trying to say is, and which also resonated when panelists were sharing, that it's more to do with the leader who was heading the institution. So like for instance, a typical case of, the work that we've done, which was industry academia engagement, we had created a hub and spoke model, where we tried creating a hub at the center, and in the vicinity of hub, we had spokes. Basically, this model was creating the assumption that tier 1 institution and tier 1 company has supposedly good industry academia practices happening. Now, how can that get passed on to tier 2, tier 3 institutions in the vicinity. And we had created 5 hubs in India and created a full-fledged framework where a basic intervention like a course curriculum upgradation to a high-end industry sponsored research could take place basis what the passion commitment level is from the hub, which was the institutions. So in fact, we also handheld this framework to a level, and we got a couple of workshops done. In fact, there was one workshop that we did in Delhi where, we kind of got, we identified 4 streams of engineering, and, we had 2 people from industry and 2 from, academic institution deliberated upon it, that how do you revamp the curriculum? And then pre-lunch, they kind of looked at, and that was one thing that came up in the discussion, which was a revelation for us, that industry is not competent enough to change the curriculum. It has to be done by the institution, but industry certainly could highlight the broad outcomes, student outcomes that they look at from that stream. So they had a very detailed discussion, pre-lunch, post-lunch, that was identified. They all came on same page, all this discussion happened, and then it could not take off after that, because as FICCI, as industry association body, we facilitated, we capacitated. But beyond that, the institution had to take it to the next level, which could not happen. Now, let me tell you, Symbiosis, Manipal, they're leading 20-30%. They're absolutely not like that. They're a different plane, different tangent. But when we're talking about 1,100 plus universities and 52,000 colleges, yes, a substantial chunk needs a lot of hand-holding. So there are 2 kinds of hand-holding that they require. One is at their level only. I mean, they have to commit themselves, and they could have very easily got in touch with those industry and could have taken that to the next level and could have revamped that curriculum, which did not happen. And 2, the tier 1 universities could also start sharing a lot of information with tier 2 institutions. For this to happen, there could be a lot of university to university engagement, because the tier 1 universities in any case have good practices. If they can pass it on. Today morning in the panel discussion, we had students from different institutions. That was a great panel, right? I mean, you have to have a lot of learnings, research collaboration, which a lot of tier 1 universities would have done with a lot of data from industry, which could easily be passed on indirectly to institutions, tier 2, tier 3 institutions. And in a way, that is also industry academia engagement. Industry academia engagement, it's not just one industry sitting across the table and on this side, you have institutions out there. So from that NKFH piece, it was a success, but it could have been better and it could be better. Like for instance, one of the learnings that we have, you have to have 2-3 dedicated associate professor who would be responsible to manage this bit. Relationship is very, very important. See, there could be 5% industry who would be very committed and may want to take this up on a priority basis, but the others are so engrossed with the work that they're in any case doing, so it has the fire, has to kind of the belly, or the fire in the belly has to be there in the institution, and that's how this whole process kind of takes off. So from that perspective, universities will have a very, very important role, and you talked about taking it to transborder. So this model, NKFH model, actually we could internationalize this, because Royal Academy of Engineering UK had this Newton Bhabha Fund. I mean, of course, DST in India and RAGE in UK, and that was a tripartite arrangement. So in fact, there were 32 Indian institutions under the aegis of FICCI and Royal Academy of Engineering who got funded. The framework was that one Indian university has to have an industry partner and a UK partner, which is a university in UK. And I was so amazed to see, yes, it had IITs, quite a few leading private universities. There were a lot of tier 2 private institutions that kind of got the award. In fact, they won the research proposal, and they kind of did amazing work in terms of what that project had kind of envisaged. So from that perspective, these models do work, but it has to come from the institutions, if I in a nutshell kind of summarize it. Yeah, that's about it.
Thank you, Dr. Rajesh. Many thanks. I think, Lee, you wanted to comment on that?
I did want to share one comment on that. These relationships between industry and university can take many forms. One that I found to be really effective is one that University of Wisconsin Stout's doing. And I introduced Anupama to one of the professors there. They have a council that advises the business school, and the council is made up of local business leaders. These guys don't meet once every 6 months, once a year. They meet monthly. They provide a source of adjunct professors. They provide updates to the professors that are tenured as to what's going on in the industry regularly. The school acts as a source of interns to these businesses. It is a win-win for both sides, but it does take commitment, and it does take the leadership wanting to make sure that the institution internalizes this new way of looking at the world. You can't do it unless it becomes part of the DNA and culture of the organization on both sides. Because remember, if you teach students skills, they're going to get jobs. That's going to become known in the market, and more kids are going to want to come to your school. That's ultimately a recipe for success. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We'll be heading to the Q&A, but I have a couple of minutes to share something with you so that in the meanwhile, some of you would also have your questions ready. I'll share my own experience on this as well. Maratha Chamber of Commerce, Industries and Agriculture is a 90-year-old institution in Pune. Both Mr. Bhargava, Ms. Pandit, Ms. Meher have been on the board and heading the institution. Just one small case study. 3 months ago, we got about 15 faculties from various institutes to come to the chamber. We did 3 things with them. 1, 40 hours of training on electric vehicles. Reason? They are fantastic faculty when it came to IC engine vehicles. Not their fault that they had not studied EVs when they were studying, and hence they couldn't teach. So the first 40 hours, industry coming and teaching them EVs. Number 2, we have heard of the programs for corporate development programs by the academia. Here it is exactly the other way around. Corporates coming and training academia, 40 hours. Number 2, we took the faculty to 5 different factories for them to touch and feel and see how the EV world is evolving. Number 3, we got 3 different industry leaders to interact with them at length so that there could be a whole lot of Q&A happening around it. When we explained this to the minister responsible for higher education in Maharashtra, nice of him that he talked about how do we replicate it, not just for 15, 20 teachers, but about 1,000 teachers in Maharashtra. And now we're working with them on how do we do that part of it. But I'm going to stop there and I'm going to look at the time and we'll spend lots of time on Q&A. There were some wonderful examples shared right from the chairperson and all the speakers. Trust me, I would want to listen to each one of them at least for an hour. So apart from the wonderful insights they have shared, the brilliant thing that they have done is they have restrained themselves in 5 to 7 minutes, each one of them. So a huge round of applause for that. That's very difficult, trust me. All right, now we start with the Q&A, and I'll be standing now. None of my friends have said this, but I'll stand. Yes, please. We'll be taking 2 questions at a time, and then we'll be responding. I'll request you to briefly introduce yourself before you ask the question. We'll take the question at the far end first, and then we'll come to the first table. Please.
Okay. First of all, thank you for our panelists here. This is Suhail Al-Ghafli from Zaid University from United Arab Emirates. I'm IIT Delhi graduate. Might be surprised, huh? Thank you. My point here, okay, there is, you have mentioned 3 things, okay? You have mentioned academia, industry, and government. Okay, now, government, okay, of course, playing a big role here, okay? But I can add the community, I think, and that's why the USR, this is one of the responsibility of the corporate, okay? Now, the point, if we look to the government as the governance in general, you see, now the government should have a vision actually, okay? Without visionary government, you cannot do anything. And plus, we have to clear, such as corruption and the other things, because otherwise, I mean, the industry will be affected negatively, because if we have one person who's biased for that X, industry, then in this case, this is the type of corruption which I'm talking about, okay? Then in this case, I think the responsibility we are sharing the responsibility, all of us, and thank you.
Thank you for that comment. We'll come here to the first table. It could be comment or question, all yours.
Thank you. My name is Jaume Fortuny. I am from Obrea Global, which is one of the organizations that support this event. We are a global organization with 60% of the team out of Europe, but we are based in Europe. In fact, we have an India chapter, and we are very proud that the chair of this chapter is the Pro-Chancellor of Symbiosis, Vidya Iradeka. So my question or my comment is about a perspective that I am missing from the table. You introduced, Pradeep Bhargava introduced the issue, and then it was repeated somewhere. that into the relation between university and industry, it's needed to be the government. Every time that we put a new element, it's because we are forced to do it. When we put the government, it's because they have the power to regulate and block this development of the industry. So we understood that if they understand, if the industry understand, the governments understand, they can regulate to foster the economy and the deployment of the industry. So that's good. So we include them, and every time we have to do something, we try to put them there. So in such a way, to put the regulators there, to put the government, help us to foster the economy. What happens, what is the trend in Europe, and what I'm missing here is that we don't talk about citizens. We don't talk about the people. And I think we should go there because civil society as, I don't know if we call it validators or acceptors, because if they participate in this relation between the industry and the academic, at the end of the day, they accept what the industry is doing. And this, that it seems very simple, is very important because we have a lot of NIMBY problems, this not in my backyard problems. We want mobile phones, but we don't want antennas close to our homes. So if we are able to put the people there, we can make them understand how it works, which are the benefits, how to deal with the social alarm regarding the developments of the industry, and we can promote industry. And that's something that we have to bear in mind, especially because we are seeing that for the big challenges that we have, not just individually or a community, but as a global planet, like to keep the environment or the climate change, we need to involve the citizens. So the civil participation is important, and it's a way to improve the world. So I think that is something that I was missing here, and I should tell you.
Fair point.
Thank
you so much. Would you want to, please?
I could attempt the last part of your conversation. You know, industry, university, government itself is a handful. Now you try and bring in citizens. Of course you bring in citizens. Challenge is who represents, is so diffused. When industry operates in marketplace, is dealing with the citizens, it captures their needs, it captures their aspiration, responds to the needs. So what the industry is trying to bring out is really the views and needs of the industry, of the citizens. Similarly, academic institution, they are constantly in touch with the civil society by the students they get, by the courses that are popular, the things that they are wanting to do. So my answer to question, yes, it is desirable, but it gets unmanageable. Which of the citizen group? And there are interest. So I think we do get captured. We do surveys, the industry does surveys all the time, so does the education institution. There's one of the major stakeholders in education institution assessment is the society. But to take a referendum and policy is a challenge, I would say, but I appreciate your point though.
Thank you.
Let me just add that we have worked a lot this part, and we know how to detect which are the people that are keen to participate in this, and we have found a lot of interesting solutions together with the industry, especially for climate change and environmental issues. So there is a way, and there is no research at this moment in Europe that at least financed by public funds that hasn't got people or civil society there. But it's not all the people in general. They are well concentrated in some specific associations and group of people of interest that we have dedicated.
Just a thought, Pradeep. I agree. Putting a fourth element just makes it that much more complicated. But we have some very good NGOs in India, non-governmental organizations. And in fact, when I was thinking through some of the points, I was saying that should be also a stakeholder in some ways, in particular areas. Like, for example, right now we are working on stubble burning in Delhi, Punjab. Okay, how do we get rid of this horrible smog in the north, year in and year out? So there are farmer produce organizations. We are having to work with them. But is there industry, academia, farmers, government, everyone involved in that? No. Right now, it's just the farmer produce organizations, the company, and the government in some cases. But academia is not part of that right now. So I think there's a permutation and combination, but I completely agree somewhere NGOs could probably be a good input.
Thank you, Meher. I know that there are many of you who want to ask questions. My only request is please take full 60 seconds to ask your questions. After that, I will request the panelists to respond to that as well so that we can take more questions. Over to you.
Yeah, so I'm Sagar Kaushik from representing industry from UPL. I also chair the National Council on Chemicals and Petrochemicals in not FICCI but SOCHM. So I want to comment actually on the action. What is next? Now here I want to just give example in very short that we looked into all the scenarios which have been explained, and as the chairperson of the SOCHM, I thought that what is that we should do? Because you know, in the industry and the industry bodies, platforms, we also do a lot of repetitive things. That's why the mergers, acquisitions are happening, because the target of research is the same, whether you are an American company or a European company. And
so what's your
therefore,
recommendation,
yeah.
sir?
Now the recommendation, we thought that what's the next step we take from here, and we have already started to work, is that why don't we don't have to start the new research now, new things. So we said that why don't we identify all the research which has been done in the chemical sector by the academia. So there are almost 100 institutions and they have done research in 4 or 5 things. So similarly, the industry doesn't know what is the requirement. No, sorry, academia doesn't know the requirement of the industry. Now we have the academia, the universities or the institutes which are located in the industrial clusters of the chemicals. So that's the another part. Now our recommendation and the project that is going on already is to create the registry of all the research which has been done by the selected the top chemical labs, including Pune, National Chemical Labs, etc. And we also do the same requirements collected through this process. And then, and you see the other area of gap is the large companies, they have their access to the research, including from the academia. But every industry is a value chain. And in the value chain, there are MSMEs. And if, you know, almost more than 50% of our GDP is contributed by MSMEs. So therefore, the academia and the MSMEs, that is also a great synergistic combination.
Got it.
And also this startups.
Thank you so much for that comment. I think it's very valuable. I'm going to now request those who have questions first. Certainly, if we have time, we'll be really keen to listen to everyone's commentary as well. We'll be happy to hear. But if there are questions first. Anyone who has a question? Yes, please. We'll take the question first, lady on the left here first, because she's been raising her hand, and then we'll come here and then we'll go back. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi everyone, I'm Prachi. I head the India operations and collaborations for Manchester Metropolitan University in the UK. My question is actually open to all our industry representatives in the panel out here. We have been working very closely for the past years with our industrial partners, though that had of course been at the research level or at the exchange of placements and career cell, of course. But will the industries be even open to the idea of supporting the young talent? For instance, lately we have observed that the year 1 or year 2 graduates have also started raising questions and ideas around what does the industry actually need, and if we can be briefed on that, or rather given a small exposure like a workshop in the beginning itself, we would know what to actually do when the internship year or the placement year actually comes, and then eventually move forward for a research or PhD or master's degree eventually. So the question is, yes, will the industry be open to that, and suggestions on how this could be done better?
I'm going to take a moment. I'm going to collect
Thanks.
2 more questions. Then you could decide on which ones to respond to. Many thanks for the quick question. Quick question, please.
Well, I'm Neelima Gupta, Vice Chancellor of Dr. Hari Singh Gaur Sagar Central University. My compliments for this very lively interaction. And now being in the university system, I feel that regarding the Board of Studies of the university, like one of you also pointed out, and the IQAC, like the universities are now all going in for NAC accreditation. There must be industrialist partners. So when the universities approach them, I do hope that the industries, they come and cooperate with the universities, because many a times the universities, they do not know in which direction to go, how to frame their courses so that they become industry friendly. So this is one comment of mine. Secondly, one of you also pointed out about the research being done in UK collaborative projects. I feel that many of the universities and industries do not know many of the programs, like one is being done by DST, that is IGSTC. And this is a collaborative program, 2+2, one university partner, one industry partner from India, and the same from Germany. So I think we should have more of these programs by other agencies, organizations, and people should become aware of it. And thirdly, it's a very welcome sign, like Dr. Bhargav said, that a plug and play in the university, at least for my university, it's a welcome sign. Please come and plug in our university and play in our university grounds as well. Thank you very much for your suggestion. Thank you.
We're noting the questions. We'll go to the next one. Mr. Bhargava, the Vice Chancellor can always decide whether to call somebody Dr. Bhargava, but I'll leave it between 2 of you after the session. Next one, please. Question.
Yeah. So my question to the panelists is very simple. So first is the complaint with Mr. Prashant and Bhargav sir that they missed out on the critical key element of having the government representative out here for this session. Okay, that's one.
Point taken. We'll improve further.
Yeah. The question is, when it comes to industry academy interface, so I don't see much of the activities either from the industry side or the institute side, both sides, in a big way, and the disruption which is not being brought by AI. So the integration has to be much more stronger, and I don't see much of the activities on that part. How this disruption which is being brought by AI, how industry is going to, or academia is going to handle this. Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, sure. We'll be taking that last question from Dr. Bhama, because I'm looking at time and we're going to really, really respect time. So for Dr. Bhama.
I came in a little late, so I don't know whether I missed this, but I'll take that. I'll first ask this question to Mr. Harold Bremen. You spoke about the local business leaders forming a council where the students go there as interns and the council providing adjunct professors. Is there any scope for faculty to go as I mean, some sort of, I won't call it internship, but some sort of orientation for faculty members, the way Mr. Prashant spoke about.
Thank you. Lee, sorry, I'll just take 1 second.
And sorry, just continuing that, is there scope for our faculty to go and work in the industry, maybe during vacation, so that they also get a glimpse of what's exactly happening at the industry? That was another question that I wanted to explore.
Thank you. So Lee, sorry, we'll start with the question, Lee, now that you picked up the mic, and then others could respond to other questions. Please.
Even as long as 35 years ago when I went to my MBA program, every single professor I had was in industry. The marketing professor had left for a year to come teach at the university. My finance professor was a CFO at a local startup that was doing computer and IT equipment. Yes, these committees do work both ways. The idea is to set up a structure that allows the communication between the universities and the local industry players.
Thank you. Anyone else? So other questions, Meher, we'll start with you. Any responses? We'll come back to you, Doctor.
Sorry, can I just add to that point? The only rejoinder to that was that today the Universities Grants Commission actually prescribes qualifications, and these are the faculty members who come to us and teach at business schools, and not all of them come from the industry. Some of them do, but not all of them, and therefore this sort of exposure will really help our faculty members.
Thank you so much for that comment. yeah, we'll hand it to Meher.
Yeah, a couple of things. One is you spoke about Manchester University and projects. I think projects could be given. I'm not sure whether industry, I mean, you have to choose which university you want to work with. But I think if there is a synergy in terms of what industry wants and what your university can provide, I think certain projects or certain challenges that we face in industry could very well be given to first year, second year, third year students. You know, so that's one thing. The second is you spoke about can we have people on the boards? You know, I would strongly suggest, just a suggestion, that you look at your students and your student alums' parents. So I think those are the sort of low-hanging fruit because they have, there's credibility established already. There's a trust factor already. So I think they would be the people who would probably fit in first in that sense, if I were to provide a suggestion. With regard to AI, very quickly, I mean, as a company, we've partnered with startups and for looking at AI to be engaged within the company, yeah. And faculty working with us, I mean, by all means, only thing is I feel, of course, again, there has to be a synergy. You know, so it's not just any faculty in the company. If it makes sense, it has to be a win-win. Yeah, so we have to choose who it is and they need to choose us both ways. And I think just doing it as a summer, it's too short a time. In fact, Ravi and we were thinking in terms of, because Ravi's on our board, and at one time we were thinking just recently in terms of can we have faculty come in at least for a year or two, you know, almost as a sabbatical, yeah, which would be really helpful.
So, you know, you talked about how do the earlier year for second year students know what is happening in the industry, what is required. So we run a program called NOVA. It's a program for teaching. So our core business is software. So teaching the current, you know, the methods in software development. So we run that kind of generally. We also run programs with selected colleges. You can't do it with all. We run programs with selected colleges of faculty training and very detailed or very intense program for the last 2 years of the college for them. So, but you know, you select colleges by looking at, you know, what is the ranking of the college, what is the, who is the main faculty who is passionate about it, you know, who will do handholding, what kind of equipment setup is there in the college, so that, you know, finally when you put your efforts, something can come out of it. We do that. We also work with international universities. For the last 6 years, we have been running a program with Coventry University, where their faculty teaches our employees and gives them an MTech from Coventry for the work that we do together. On the AI and especially now this whole talk is about ChatGPT. A software company cannot exist without working in that area. So we do a lot of work in that area.
Thank you, Ravi.
I just need
a moment before that. Yeah. I need to seek permission that we are at 12:45. How long have we got? How much of extension have we got? All right. Thank you so much. If that's okay with everyone, then we'll continue with that. Please, Dr. Rajesh, and then we'll come to Anuradha.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. So to your point, in fact, so again, I'll go back to the pointers that I highlighted in my remarks. See, industry academia has to be looked at fundamentally. AI, disruption, technology, to a basic teaching learning. So here we are talking about how do we create a sustained industry ecosystem. To your question, industry will do only things which they find value in. So that is what we're trying to highlight then. No matter what we as panelists say, it will never work, and it has never worked. Universities have to identify theme, topic, issues, even if it's something like a basic, internship that you want your students to do. And by the way, this is all coming from the model that I talked about, National Knowledge Functional Hub and Spoke model that we ran in the country across cities, and that's what it's come out to be. And umpteen deliberations that we as industry association body do. Something as basic as you want 20 students to be interned in a university, in an industry. The industry will never take it. If you don't do the homework, figure out what is the strength of the student, what kind of project he wants to intern, prepare that list, give it to industry, they will intern you. It has worked, otherwise it will never work. So therefore, the heavy lifting that I'm talking about has to come from industry. But after a point in time, that if we're able to establish the threshold level of relationship, then it's mutual. Then industry would also come back to you and all that. And government, by the way, the point that you made, priest, bride and groom, of course, unfortunately, university is a groom out here, so a bride out here, so bride is, she also has to do parenting and working and all of that. University would be more like a bride and priest will always be notional. In this forum, I don't think government would have that big a role to play. Policy landscape, regulation, funding, all that is fine. Nobody's stopping. I mean, there were a few pointers that, I mean, one or two questions that came up that, so government doesn't stop any kind of industry academia interface to happen. So why do we need a policy? What support are we talking about? Nothing. I don't think government is required at all. It's all from between university and institution. There's so much that's happening across. So universities, and that's NKFH piece that I talked about. You know, we did so much and it could not go beyond that point. Why? Because, okay, so what do we do next? When is the next program? No, FICCI will not do a next program. We'll capacitate you and then you have to take it to the next level, right? So that's how it works, in fact. You know, so, and by the way, government, like AICT, a simple thing, AICT, that they've done a lot of work around promoting internship institutions, in fact. A basic thing like, you know, first internship would be that university have crores of equipments in their campuses and students don't see that, right? So first layer of internship is that institution would then actually allow students to do internship within university. The second layer of internship that they've made it so pragmatic and it's for institutions to adopt. That in the vicinity you have all these repair shops, cycle repair shops, automobile repair shops. Yes, internship doesn't mean IOCL, BPCL, Thermax. Internship could be very simple, MSMEs and all that. And tier 3 internship basically we reach large corporates. Now how many institutions in India does that? I don't know. And by the way, there are thousands of companies that have enrolled themselves on AICT portal. Ma'am, to your question, you have to exert and figure out. So Skill India portal, Ministry of Education, the government is striving to converge, but it will happen with time. So there's a lot of effort that we have to put from our side to kind of get the right information there, So, and that's what, so AICT's format is amazing, it's so pragmatic in nature, right? If institutions start adopting it, there'll be so much of upskilling, reskilling, contemporary relevant skill set students would start attaining without even any intervention from government. So these are basic things to something like the panelists talked about, that the level of AI and all that. Yes, industry also will come forward and they have to kind of, at the moment they find value, they'll start taking up. And government is doing all those weighted deduction and all those incentives that government has to, how do you reform and overhaul the IPR policies and norms?
Right, Dr. Rajesh, right? That's very true.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. What I'm going to do is, the three of you go to speak now. Lee first, Anuradha, and then we'll go to Rakesh as well. Please, thank you.
I just wanted to make one suggestion. This afternoon, we have the option of going out to see factories. I strongly recommend academics get out and go to see how a factory works today, what goes on in an office today. That's really going to open your eyes. India wants to get to a $7.5 trillion economy in short order, which means it has to go up the value chain, start manufacturing higher value products. This is not done in isolation. You can't just screw on screws and charge $1,000. You have to make electronics. To have a degree to work in a factory 100 years ago was unknown. Now it's necessary in an Industry 4.0 facility. Go out and see what people are doing. The final thing I want to point out, and this sort of transcends things too, when you're looking at industry partners or university partners, you have to make sense to each other. That was the best point made, but you have to both value each other. Believe it or not, a partnership with Harvard is probably not going to be as important to Harvard as it is to you. Never forget that key element.
Thank you so much. I think on your advice, the university has already planned visit to industries. So it will be acted upon right away, immediately after the lunch. We'll move on to Anuradha.
I just want to address one point here, which I think was alluded to by a lot of people. It's a chicken and egg situation. The universities don't know where to go, and the industry is kind of waiting for the university to come to them. And again, from the operations perspective, we kind of shifted that narrative. We stopped for a year. We didn't do any partnerships in 2013. If you look at all our industry partnerships, they started in 2014. What we did in 2013 was to step back, evaluate all the kind of MOUs, partnerships. We did a lot of stakeholder discussion. We invited a lot of industry professionals on advisory boards and asked them, how could we go out and what can a university do? It's a very daunting task, but it actually took us a year to do that. 2014, we released our first partnerships framework. which told us what are we going to pitch to the industry. We hired the staff who could do that. So my main job for last 10 years has only been partnerships. I don't bring in any green dollars to my university, but all I do is I talk to people, I find out what they need, and then I try to match it up with what my university can offer. And there are a lot of people like me who are there in the market, who are working for universities, who are working for industries. It's just a matter of, I think, just stepping back a little bit, gaining perspective for the universities, and having like a brochure, a two-pager document, something on your mind about what you can offer to the industry. That's all I wanted to add here.
Hey, thank you so much. I think every university should have someone like Anuradha to do that for each one of them. That's what we would hope, and that's what we would expect.
And that's my employment pitch.
And Anuradha is busy, so I'm sure you'll. Rakesh.
So the situation is not changed much. When I was doing engineering 4 decades ago, like it was difficult to get the vocational training, you see. People having some influential contacts used to get into the OEMs and the good industries, the other they used to just settle with the tier 2, tier 3. Or maybe like you see in place of the vocational training, they used to settle with the project reports and all. So the situation just similar to this, maybe the magnitude is less because of the efforts of the good institutes and the colleges. But my submission is such training should not be 1 month or the 2 months. When the like students go to the industry, they spend next initial 10 days, 15 days just to get the, like you see, the orientation. Hardly they do anything, you see. They just cannot do the project work. And when they submit the project work, they just copy and then you submit and take some kind of the assessment marks and all. So my idea of the 2+2, when we just talked about, Ravi also mentioned, like you see, that they are also giving some kind of the training to the students for the 2 years and also the faculties that way. So that is going to really work. When a student gets admission into the college, he or she should know, like you see, that this is the kind of the industry where I'll be getting the such vocational training. As of now, after passing out the engineering, some people, they good colleges, they are inducted as a graduate engineer trainees, and the other institutes like that, they just settle with the graduate apprenticeship training and all. I think we need to really work on this, and the industry and the academia should work together to really ease out the students like facing this problem. Thank you.
Many thanks. Thank you so much. We're at around 12:53. I know that lunch is almost ready. Don't want to take too much time. We're almost towards the conclusion. I'll be requesting the chairperson to give his concluding remarks. But just before that, just a moment before that, because it's a unique situation where we have the chancellor of the university and pro-chancellor in the audience, not on the stage, and we're not listening. So I need to do my job of asking if there is any comment from Dr. Muzumdar or Dr. Vidya before I request the chairperson to conclude. Dr. Muzumdar, sir.
Let me first thank all the speakers. It is a wonderful discussion. And I think just as we have industry academia engagements, we should also have academia and society engagement. What Rakesh told us is that industries should first empower the weaker section of the society. Industries should give priority in giving vocational education to the girls, especially from rural areas. In our discussion, we often forget the real India. There are two countries, India and Bharat. We are discussing issues regarding India, ignoring Bharat. There are 640,000 villages in our country. And unless the villages are developed, India has no chance to develop. And therefore, I feel that there should be some element of industry and academia to the rural India or Bharat, and to me especially girls. I do believe that 21st century belongs to women. Thank you so much for all your cooperation and your views. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Before I ask the chairperson if the Pro-Chancellor has a comment to make,
So first of all, let me thank all my wonderful friends here. It was just a WhatsApp away. And, you know, when we decided to have the industry academia engagement or a session, it actually came from Austrade. Monica Kennedy, I think she's sitting in the other auditorium. She said that, you know, Australia would be interested in listening to the Indian industry. And when she said that, I started sending WhatsApp messages to a couple of my friends. In fact, all of them were sitting here. And to my utter surprise, I thought they'll say, oh, I mean, who goes to an academic conference and talks? But, you know, we got such a big response that we now have 2 panels. There's another 8-member panel that side in the auditorium, which only shows that the industry is interested in connecting with academia. Then we decided that it's not just about closed-door discussions. We must take our Indian, but more importantly, our international guests to industry to see what the way Indian industry functions, because every time we get an international delegation, this is the question that they ask us, that can we get to visit Indian industry? And, you know, we've not planned it well, so we don't know, you know, how can you just arrange a visit last minute? And this time it was a conscious effort, and I must thank the industry, all of them again, to allow academia, especially from across the globe, to actually visit the industry. And I must thank the academia for showing interest of visiting the industry, which also means that now this is a beginning of a more deeper engagement, a more symbiotic relationship that is going to be established between Indian industry that is here and an international and national academia. So I think thank you very much, all of you, for having accepted our invitation. Just 2 cases that I would like to quote, and I think one of the panelists did say that you need to have trust in, you know, industry needs to trust academia. Sometimes you wonder why industry goes to some, at least as Indian academia who are sitting here, vice chancellors wonder that why should a ABC industry invest so much in an international university? Why can't they put up a chair, you know, in an Indian university? And probably the trust factor is not there. Giving you just a last minute, you know, story of Symbiosis. So a couple of years ago, we tried hard when we established the engineering school to develop, you know, partnerships with the local industry as well as industry across the nation. And somehow we were not, you know, probably the trust factor wasn't great. Symbiosis was more known for management and law, not so much for engineering. Or maybe the leadership at that time wasn't great, or whatever could be the reason. Today, I can say with great pride that the Serum Institute, you know, all of you know, the industry that manufactured Covishield vaccine for the world, they are setting up a Symbiosis Center for Research and Innovation in Vaccines and Biologicals on this very campus, which means the trust factor is established. The second example, you know, Rajiv, Bajaj, Sanjeev, all of us friends, but they never had faith in Symbiosis, but now they do, because they're establishing a whole Bajaj Excellence Center here again at our engineering school, funded with 15 crores, with huge labs with the latest technology and so on. So that's another big example. And the third example, recently that we came to know, and we just got a mail, that TCS is establishing a center for excellence. I'm not quoting, you know, just because it's Symbiosis, because I know there could be so many Indian universities. So I think it's just the trust factor that someone said here on the panel, that if you really do good things, and it's not just about the number of publications, but the quality of research that you do. And I think the engineering school here at least has now looked, you know, is venturing into really good quality publications and research, and therefore the trust of the industry is growing stronger. I think there's so much room for us to do a little bit. I'm sure they'll walk their way to us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Many thanks for that. Thank you so much for that. And now the final word.
And I was told somebody is going to sum up, and I say, what's the need of this summing up? I've already taken in my mind what my take from the session is. Why is this pompous man coming and telling you sum up? So I'm not going to try any of those things because each one of you have taken your own take. And Vidya, we don't have to wait for the food to come, we can smell it. So in any case, we just need to quickly. So I'm not tempting. I think my wonderful colleagues, just want to thank each one of them. But I want to leave some thought because kuch to bolna hai na, if I become here. You know, there are a few trends which I think have been coming out on this conversation also. First and foremost, which I think is saying there's a democratization of information and knowledge. Once upon a time, we could put it in our locker, the information. Today is all. It has a great impact on industry as well as universities. It democratizes everywhere. The second thing which is happening very strongly is this regimentation and specialization. It's not enough to say I have a computer science department, please do. You have to say my specialization is AI, and within AI what our friends in SIT are doing, you need to get into granularity, both from industry side as well as things. Now this regimentation and fragmentation is taking to a very interesting spin in the industry, and its relevance to our relationship. We land up, because we can't do everything, we land up outsourcing a lot of these things. I think most of us in industry have become integrators rather than manufacturers. Good old days when you used to make a car, you used to make everything. Today you just perhaps put together. Which means again the university has to position itself as that focal point. Now last point. When you do this outsourcing, when you do this integration, when you go for a specialization, when you go to an alliance, so this country is talking about Atmanirbharta, self-dependence. Actually, you're becoming more and more nirbhar on your partners. So with this dependence, with this getting independent, there's a level of dependence, which means Atmanirbharta will call for nirbharta. But then that's a very healthy one which needs to collaborate. And in this nirbharta, this dependence on each other, there's no way we in industry can pretend to ignore the potential. A lot of it is latent, but needs to come out that the industry provide. To close, I just was looking at the theme, making the world a better place to live in, transformative role of university. I want to once again humbly say, the role is yours, teachers and universities. You are the ones who, factories and mother, who produce all the talent. We guys are one of the beneficiary called industry. Ultimately, how it will be shaped will be decided by the knowledge and, sir, to your point, the sanskar, the values we give to our students and children. They are the ones who are the industry is actually output of some college or the university only. We are not some dropped from Mars or something. We are part of your output. So ultimately, transformation is yours. We are humbly one of the beneficiaries. We happen to be one of the biggest procurer of your graduates, but that doesn't mean anything. Ultimately, it's yours. We are all there to do, and let's collectively do it. And sir, to your point, yes, and I mentioned it also, universities, as particularly like industry should, is accountable to creating cadre, not for just for industry. You're creating cadre for civil society. You're creating cadre for our defense forces. You're creating cadre for our bureaucracy. You're creating cadre for our politicians. You have a much larger task ahead of you, and you're doing it a tremendous job. We in industry should be equally sensitive. Thank you very much. It's been a great thing, and thanks very much, my panelists.
We conclude the program.
Thank you, panelists, for such an insightful and invigorating session. Thank you, Mr. Bhargav and Mr. Gurbane, for expertly chairing and moderating the session. We will now request Dr. Bhama Venkatramani, Dean, Academics and Administrator, Symbiosis International University, to felicitate the dignitaries on the dais. Ms. Meher Pudumji, Chairperson, Thermax Global. Mr. Ravi Pandit, Chairperson of the Board, KPIT Technologies Limited. Mr. Harold Lee Braben, Acting Principal Commercial Officer, U.S. Department of Commerce. Ms. Anuradha Gupta, Head, Partner Engagement, Macquarie International, Macquarie University, Australia. Mr. Rakesh Baweja, Senior Vice President, Fiat India Automobiles Private Limited. Dr. Rajesh Pankaj, Director, FICCI. Our moderator, Mr. Prashant Girbane, DG, MCCIA. Our chair, Mr. Pradeep Bhargav, Chairperson ASL and past President MCCIA.